We take a single episode of a science fiction TV series and overanalyze it to within an inch of its life. This is the Fusion Patrol Podcast. Welcome to the discussion. Hello and welcome to another episode of Fusion Patrol. I'm Eugene.
And I'm Ben.
And tonight we are looking at the Fantastic Journey, episode number 3, Beyond the Mountain. Varian, Scott, Fred, and the newly joined member of the party, Liana, cross into another time zone. Liana's cat follows them through the portal to join the party and plays no further part in this episode, nor does this time zone, as a mysterious red cloud, similar to the green cloud that brought them here, overtakes them and deposits Varian, Scott, and Fred in a swamp. Liana is deposited at a pleasant villa beyond the mountain, where she meets Jonathan Willoway. Willoway and his enormous staff and sons make her at home and welcome. But something is amiss. In the swamp, the others encounter a group of refugee aliens who were driven out of the villa by Willoway when he took control of their servants. Liana is developing feelings for Willoway's son, Cirrus, and it appears Cirrus is developing feelings for her. But that's impossible, because all of Willoway's household and staff and family are emotionless androids. Liana learns that Willoway has decided to keep her for his bride, and when the others come to rescue her, there's a showdown between our heroes and this deeply evil man. Can the power of love save the day? Yes, it can. Cirrus overcomes his programming and destroys the androids and his own power supply, ending Willoway's advantage. Also, the aliens from the swamp come back and take their villa back, kicking Willoway to the curb. Then the cat shows up just in time to leave. Oh, and they decide to take Willoway with them. Varian reveals that in the future, Jonathan Willoway is highly regarded as the creator of a new school of scientific ethics that is one of the building blocks of the world he comes from. Varian knew Willoway would never really do anything evil, apart from ordering their deaths and kidnapping Liana, and basically indicating that he planned to keep her a prisoner and rape her, but he knew that was just a bluff. All is forgiven. Ha ha! I'm gonna break pattern here because of time. Wild coincidence, Mr. Iguana, who is one of the few people who's ever been quoted as commenting on, I think, on our podcast, left a comment like about 30 seconds before we started this podcast. And I just wanted to read his comment here about the first episode of Fantastic Journey Vortex. And that was, I remember turning in for this each week, desperately hoping that it would deliver on its premise and provide some decent sci-fi. But it always disappointed, and I just wound up sticking around for the hot Atlantium chick. I have never heard a more succinct description of this show in my life. I'll tell you. Thank you for the comment, Mr. Iguana. Thank you to everyone who's been commenting lately. We appreciate
we've been seeing some good comments on the website. That's been nice.
Which is, by the way, FusionPatrol.com. Yes. I do want to kind of start off with some. This episode enraged me. Probably, as you'll recall, The Naked Montague enraged you. This episode enraged me.
Really?
It did, because, if I watched this as a kid, and I really don't believe I did watch Fantastic Journey, but if I had watched this as a kid, and I've seen this in other shows, so this is not just sort of here. As a kid, I'm going to keep you as my wife kind of comes off as a little bit, that's not cricket, old boy, right? But as an adult watching this, I realize he's basically going to keep her a sex slave.
More or less,
He's planning to keep her and rape her. And that is an outrageously horrible message to be sending to, frankly, kids, boys like me. I wouldn't have watched it and said, well, that's right. I'm not saying that. But I would have watched this show and not understood the enormity of how deeply, deeply evil this man is. And the fact that they walk off with him happily hand in hand at the end of this, all is forgiven. He's the founder of our civilization in the future.
That's a scary civilization.
Oh, that just absolutely blows my mind. It's so wrong.
Well, we know very little about Willoway's past. We know that he makes the statement that he and the rest of the scientific community did not see eye to eye, which is why he was happy to leave the world.
Which sort of means that he's been proved right in the future, therefore they were all wrong to begin with.
Doesn't that kind of sound like that?
It does sound like that.
Yeah, because Varian basically, as you described in your synopsis, says that, the scientific ethic that Willoway had was the building block. And Willoway says, I was exonerated posthumously.
Yeah.
And that kind of says that, well, that must mean that his scientific values and his values, period, must have been regarded as correct.
Which, involved...
It was kind of weird.
Involved taking a group of intelligent people and banishing them from stealing their homes, banishing them to live in a freaking swamp where they're heard to cry every night by the androids and keep them basically down, and to steal all their property and to steal their androids and to kidnap women and have their nefarious plans and to threaten to kill Varian and the others. And I'm not at all convinced that was a bluff. I don't care what Varian said at the end. I think he'd have done it because he had the androids to do it. It's a different if he'd had to choke him himself. But if he has the androids, it's like, snap fingers, kill them, and they're dead. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take it out of my sight so I don't have to see it. Yeah, totally.
But there was no indication that it was a bluff.
No.
Absolutely none. There was every indication that he meant it. That he meant what he said, that he was going to do those things to Liana, and that he was going to have Varian, Scott, and Fred killed.
Mm-hmm.
So this about turn, I remember when I saw this, the one other time during its network run, and I remember, to be honest, I remembered nothing of this episode except for Willoway, who we might as well say Roddy McDowell.
Right.
So I remember
typically Roddy McDowell performance.
Yeah, I remember that he was a very bad man who. This is the other thing. He must have been one hell of a genius scientist because he came from the 50s / early 60s era, according to what little bit of the story we get.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the fact that he could do that level of programming kind of really speaks to his scientific know-how.
Right.
So he's pretty darn advanced in terms of his scientific knowledge. I will not begrudge him that. But the man has absolutely no morals whatsoever. He's completely immoral. Totally immoral. And I remember that as a kid when I saw it, I remember that he how can this very bad man all of a sudden be welcome into their group quite so openly? And I remember that perplexed me as a kid. That's the only thing that I remembered from this episode, was being totally puzzled by that move. And as I watched this episode again, I kept thinking, this is the most implausible, outrageous thing I have ever seen.
I have a theory about that, but I'm going to mention one other thing first, and then I'll get to the theory, because I have one last thing about that evil, evil man. He cries. Cirrus destroys the power supply so that he can save Liana. And as he comes to her, as he's quote-unquote dying, a tear forms in his eye, which we can get to that later. He's an android. But then there's a tear in Willoway's eye, too. But here's the thing. Up to this point, in the way I'm watching it, I suppose you might go, he's crying because his son has died, Cirrus. But I take it as he's crying because I've been beaten and I'm going to lose everying. It's a selfish
That's what tear. I got. That's what I got. That this community that he had built for himself, and whatever achievements that he may have felt that he brought about were lost.
Yeah.
And so yes, I agree. I found it to be a selfish tear.
Deeply, deeply evil man. Anyway.
Yeah. do remember that there are times where we will revisit that.
So, we talked in the first episode about how it just... obviously things went places and then disappeared like the whole rest of the party going back to their time for no apparent reason other than just to get rid of them, and how it felt like Gary Collins has been added in. I postulate the following. This episode was originally written in which Liana leaves Atlantis independently of the others with her cat, and she gets captured by Willoway, and then the other guys come and find her by more or less by accident, and then at the end of this, Liana and the others get together with a cat and leave as a team. And the reason I postulate that is because look at the way the story starts. First off, last episode, last thing they do, here, keep the cat. Off they go. Next episode, they walk into a completely empty, barren, basically, zone. And Liana turns around, and there's the cat. And it's like, okay, that just completely... like, if you knew you were going to do it in the next episode, then why didn't you just keep the cat with you in the first place instead of having the extra scene? Then the cat disappears, of course, and it doesn't show up again till the very end of the episode. And they don't spend any time in this zone. They walk just very short distance. They see the big red cloud that looks exactly like the big green cloud, except that it's red. And
they need to walk into it.
Yeah, and then they don't turn around and walk back through the portal, which was to a friendly zone now, and just wait out the storm, which they could have done. They are immediately picked up and deposited in completely two different areas, places, which seem like they're two different time zones. They're so
it almost felt different. Like that, and it seemed very.
One is Dagobah.
Yeah, there was a certain amount of. I don't know what the word is. It just seemed really convenient that the three guys ended up in the swampland with the swampies, and Liana would end up in the one place where she would be held captive. It felt too convenient to me as a story device that she would end up there.
I just feel like that beginning scene where they were picked up by the red cloud was tacked on. And so maybe when they tacked that on, at the end they said, whoa, Roddy McDowell, let's tack him on too. Because there's no indication, even in the showdown, where Varian stands firm and Liana says, then you'll have to kill me too. At the end of that, there's no indication that Varian thinks that he would have not killed him. That's not revealed until they come to the scene at the end, the potentially tacked on scene, and bump into Roddy McDowell's character again. And he says, oh yeah, I knew you wouldn't have done it, because I've heard of Jonathan Willoway, and you're the great man, and da-da-da-da-da. Feels like framing that they put around the story so that they could remix it.
Well,
I have no idea, but it doesn't make any sense otherwise. It's
possible. There's a very cryptic line that happens in the earliest scenes of this episode, and I think it's right after they step to the portal when the cat shows up. Scott at one point makes notice of the number of people that are in their party, and Varian says, well, just add one more and we'll be back to our original number. And it's like, okay, wow, man, could you telegraph that anymore?
Which is exactly the kind of thing you might do if you tack that scene on the beginning.
Yeah.
So, I'm not too... Anyway, I wanted to get that evil man thing out of the way because it was infuriating. What did you think of the episode? I mean, I have a ton of other notes. But
I did not like this one. Did not like it. It did exactly what I was sort of afraid this series was going to do, and that it became the worst kind of procedural that you can imagine. And the characterizations were just pathetically poor, especially on Liana's part. I mean, it was just completely, it was pure rubbish that here is this woman who theoretically has an advanced scientific, I would imagine has a somewhat more advanced scientific mind because of her background, and yet she gets absolutely zero clue at all as to the nature of these androids.
Well, it's more than that. She's got mental powers.
Well, she has mental powers with her.
She telecommunicates with her cat.
She can talk to her cat.
She can wiggle her eyeballs and make people pass out.
Yeah.
Right? And she has high gravity world strength. She couldn't, with her mental powers, tell that those androids were not giving off people energy.
Well, just like Varian does.
Yeah.
Varian does it. He's able to detect that they're not real.
Uh-huh.
She couldn't.
So, I would have, if nothing else, she should have tried to overpower one of them with her eye wiggling.
Well, she felt no compulsion. It wasn't until Jonathan starts making the threat that she's going to be his prisoner, basically, his sex slave. That's the only time she feels any kind of threat, I guess. But it's not directed at any of the androids. It's only directed at him. And yet she does nothing.
He's standing there in the room. You know, if she has the power to make guards collapse, you'd think she'd have at least tried it. When
she would have attempted it. I figured she would have at least attempted it on Cirrus first.
Remember, he did, I'm going to make you my bride, and she says, no, you're not, and then she gets hauled off to Bridesville, and then the next morning, Cirrus says, oh, she's unhappy, and so Roddy goes back in and talks to her and says, yeah, I'm going to let you go, and slips her a Mickey.
Yeah.
So she's been a prisoner there all night, I think, at that point, knowing
she's made no attempt to leave.
No attempt to leave. As far as we can tell, she didn't do anything, even to Cirrus, who she likes, but it seems to be a non-destructive sort of weapon.
Remember how we commented about how in the pilot we had these two other women that were just complete and utter dingbats?
Mm-hmm.
Leanna supplanted that role.
She did.
Big time in this episode. It's horribly disappointing. It's like, this was not even a character step back. I mean, this was... I sometimes wonder, I mean, what were the writers thinking? Was this an episode that was originally maybe designed at first for one of those original women that maybe the test audience didn't like? And then they started changing it?
That's a possibility.
Maybe along the lines of what you were suggesting?
That's a possibility. It may have been written that way, and they did some... They hadn't shot anything, but they just didn't change the script very much. But again, we could... My indignation comes back again. This is, it is different from the fact that Willoway is going to hold her a prisoner as his sex slave, but this is such a casually derogatory portrayal of a woman.
Yeah,
it's casual sexism, and it's.
I would almost call
it's bugging me now because it's like this is what I was indoctrinated with subconsciously as a kid.
It's primetime misogyny.
Yeah, that's a good term. I wonder if primetime misogyny has been trademarked.
That'll be the name of our episode now. We'll call the Fantastic Journey the primetime misogyny.
Fusion Patrol T-shirts.
Yeah. Oh yes, that'll be a seller.
That'll go with my I'm not beaten, I have more tongs.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a long story.
Right.
For another day, perhaps.
Yeah. But this episode, it was misogyny at its worst. And even in 70s television, society had made some progress that we're kind of like moving away from that kind of thinking. And here we are. I mean, I don't care. I don't care if your antagonist of this episode is from the late 50s or early 60s where maybe that kind of thing was more acceptable. I don't care. It does not work well for this television episode. Not in the slightest.
Yeah, you would expect... Well, all right. For example, let's say that somebody made an episode right now of a TV show, and in it a character from the 1950s. Let's say, what's his name? Don Dodgy or something from Mad Men.
Okay.
I don't remember what it is because I don't watch that show. But
I don't watch it either, but I know what you're talking about.
It's a 1960s American chain-smoking misogynistic assholes club, and to show what a crappy world we used to live in. And you bring one of those guys forward and you put him in modern times. He might go around slapping some woman's butt. And I would not expect them to behave in a fashion that he would expect. I would hope they would knee him in the groin, punch him in the nose, or just hit him over the head with a cricket bat or something. Lyanna should not be even in 1970 standards, she shouldn't be behaving as passively as she is in this episode. But as a half-alien princess from a high-gravity world with psychic powers from the future, she should really not be accepting of this. And it just...
She rolls over. I mean, she claims she doesn't like it, but it's more of a... It's like she assumes the victim role.
Well,
in all of that.
Kind of have cute beady eyes. Oh, wait.
And, and that's why I keep thinking maybe this was originally written for one of those other women from the pilot, because they were kind of brainless as characters, and they had really no character strength at all, not like Lyanna does, or at least presents herself as having in the last story. What we saw in this one, that wasn't even Lyanna. I don't care. That was somebody else, we were saying.
Yeah, they had forgotten Lyanna was Lyanna, basically. I think you've got a good idea there. This story was probably written with somebody else in mind, and then they we'll just rewrite it for. Yeah,
that's probably what they just thought. We'll just use Lyanna. We've got another woman. We'll just use her. Well, that makes the story worse.
What's the cat's name?
I don't know. It begins with a T, I think.
It's from now on going to be Mr. Whiskers.
I don't know. I want to call the cat Toonses.
Yeah, it comes to my mind every time I see that cat. Oh, Mr. Whiskers, there you are. It's like he is now Mr. Whiskers for me. So when they got picked up by the storm and deposited in Dagobah, did it pick them up physically? Strong winds, blow them around and drop them down in a swamp? Or
no, I think it moved.
Portal?
I think it was another portal. That's my guess. That it did exactly the same thing. But it kind of made me wonder a little bit about, well, where on the island, did it change time zones? I mean, I'm kind of, I don't know if it's very germane to the overall story. I kind of think it is, actually. But for the sake of this series, where it has now been boiled down to procedural, I guess it's really not that important. All that matters is that it put them someplace else. And I'm kind of curious, where did it put them? And I find it kind of very convenient that it would just bump them into the same time zone, just on opposite sides. She's on one side of the mountain, they're on the other side of the mountain in the swamp. I don't know. It just, the whole thing.
From a geography standpoint, does it really seem that feasible?
No.
One side is Southern California and the other is Louisiana?
Not in the slightest.
No.
I thought they were in two different time zones, to be honest. Because we know that whenever they walk through a time zone, it's almost like they walk through an entire different topography.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought they were just in two entirely different time zones. And that might have made for a more interesting story, at the very least. Because I don't know. It certainly would have been better than what they gave us.
So a couple things I want to point out when they were on Dagobah. The first was that Scott is, really worried because something's there. And so he's telling everybody, hey, guys, we should be careful. There's something there. He's all scared and stuff. And then he sees a obscured animal pacing near them
Hey, it's an animal.
Hey, it's an animal. He gets a big old smile on his face and he walks off toward it. And I might point out, this is a classic television example of if you break off from the group, you will be picked off one by one.
Oh, yeah, we've been seeing that since 1940s horror movies. We still do. Even in horror movies today, we still get it.
Do not wander off. I mean, when Fred wandered off from Varian, I'm like, did you not learn something from Scott?
Oh, I know. I just thought, really?
He's one step in front of you, and you change directions and head to the left, and you couldn't say, hey, Varian, hold on. Let's check this out. You just walk off by yourself. Oh, I know. Really dumb thinking on everybody's part here. So it was like and another thing, I think I have seen the villa set on Logan's Run.
Really?
The
series, I imagine.
The series, I seem to recall, I think it's the episode where they have like the spaceship full of aliens or something. But
Okay, well, you've seen more of that than I have. I mean, I only got
that sort of little house out on the lakey, kind of roundy villa, flowery lake thing. I every time I'd see it, I'd swear I was like, "Wow, I've definitely seen that in another show." And I think it's Logan's Run, but
I only got like 3 episodes into that series, and then I stopped. So you know more about it than I do.
no, yeah, I recognize more locations in it. I can't say I know more about it anyway. The Greenies. What is up with that story?
Wow, yeah.
Well, why were they the Mexican aliens from
Thank you.
UFO?
Thank you. That was what I thought too as I watched. I thought, ooh, this is really tacky.
Do you remember when I said we could, I suppose, forgive 1960s British people for having a ridiculously stereotyped portrayal of Mexicans? Not 1970s American.
No, I cannot forgive that.
And they're not. I recognize that actor who is playing the lead part. He was in lots of shows back then, and he is a Caucasian actor, which they have, put in a poncho via mustache and wig, and then greened up so that you wouldn't necessarily think that they tried to tan him up and look Mexican.
It was awful.
And they were pointless.
Yeah. And something about them being kind of booted out of their village. I mean, there's a lot of really, really bad cliches. It was terrible to watch. It was painful to watch.
You know,
and the story was meaningless, in many ways.
You could sort of draw an analogy to, say, native people, but they're not natives. They're aliens.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't catch the name Rugins or something like that.
I didn't catch the name, yeah.
We only hear it the one time.
The Greenies.
I call them Swampies. That was the first thought that ran through my head when I saw them.
Cruel. Sorry.
Actually, that would have made it better. As much as I hate that Doctor Who episode, it would have made this better.
So they're picking them off one by one because their leader has a bacteriological infection.
He has malaria.
Which, I might point out, I'm sorry, our medicine in the 23rd century can't help with bacteriological infections.
No, but Fred might be able to do something.
With his medicine pack.
With his medicine pack. Oh, wait a minute. He doesn't. He doesn't have a doctor's bag. Oh, darn. Where did he get the medicine?
Yeah. And it might kill... Oh, I hate that cliche. It could cure him.
It could kill him.
But it might kill him.
Oh, thank you. We've been hearing that one since Star Trek.
A lot longer than that.
Well, yeah.
A lot longer than that. It goes back to the 40s with the... If you break apart, they'll pick you off one by one.
Yeah.
And then you won't... And you might cure or kill him.
I know lots of really awful cliches in this.
And then it's like, you guys ought to stand up for yourselves and take your villa back. Yeah, you're right. Well, thanks a lot for saving us, and see you later.
Yeah.
And then they show up at the end and take their villa back.
Without force.
Without force, which I guess is good in a way.
Yeah, because Sirius was able to destroy the power source.
But they weren't in any way involved in the process of saving it. Again, they were
meaningless.
In the bushes watching, like Gary Collins was.
They were totally irrelevant because what's happening with them and Fred and Varian and Scott, I mean, that's clearly the B story. All that stuff that's happening in Dagobah. That is the if you're going to have an A plot, B plot, that's the B plot. Well, but the B plot has zero, really, no relevance at all to what is going on in the A story. I mean, yes, they talk about how that was their village originally. That was their home, and that was their androids. But you could have written them out totally, and it would not have had any effect on the main story, which was Willoway and Lyanna.
He said it feels like they weren't part of the Willoway story.
I don't think they were originally. I think it was part of some other story.
I kind of wonder if the original intent in Fantastic Journey, and I don't know this, but I kind of wonder if the original intent was to have two teams. And so
two parallel stories going on?
Two parallel stories going on, because that's at the end of that episode they split up, and I'm wondering if they were intending to, this week we have these three people and the professor and his two girls, and then the next week we have Varian and Scott and Fred, and maybe that was kind of the format that they were going with, because it is a fairly large group to maintain a story for. And if, this was sort of a Liana story, and then because it was studio bound, everything in the swamp was studio bound.
Yes.
So, I mean, that could have been done very cheaply after the fact to fill in off the story somehow. I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't.
The Atlantium story felt like a cohesive story. I mean, cohesive in as much as beginning, middle, end. This one, again, like the pilot, feels like bits of it have been cobbled on to change it around. And
which is partly, again, why I think that maybe it had a different form, because they thought they were going to have a different cast. Mm-hmm. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I think you're right. I think that this thing got kind of hacked and recobbled together shortly before they had to shoot it.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming that they showed the pilot to a test audience before they started filming the rest of the series proper, I think it's very possible that this particular story was originally a bit different than what we were given because of a change of characters. Maybe they felt, well, by changing some of the cast, now we've got this void in this particular story because we were going to do something else. So, I know, let's do this swamp thing. We'll cram that all together. I mean, which tells me it's very sloppy story writing. But then, boy, it's 70s sci-fi. What do you want?
Do you know, I remember when I was in high school and we had class elections, and I remember the teacher who was announcing, or the principal, whoever it was announcing the election, that Han Solo had been a significant write-in vote for class president. Not enough to win, but he felt that it was necessary to point that out because obviously we weren't taking these elections very seriously. I wonder if they did something like that after the test audiences and everyone wrote in, needs more Roddy McDowall. And so they said, hey, Roddy McDowall, that's what we need in this series. Let's get him.
Well, what had he been doing up to this point? The Planet of the Apes movies.
Right. Was that before that? Was the TV series before that?
TV series was after. TV series was when I was in...
no, wait a minute. No,
they're right. That's right. Planet of the Apes TV series was when I was in junior high. This series, Fantastic Journey, came out when I was in high school.
Yeah, this must have been... I don't know. Roddy McDowall has such a long...
Yeah, Planet of the Apes TV series premiered in September of '74.
That sounds right. It was up against something I watched, like The $6 Million Man, too. I remember that. Or Man from Atlantis. No. Maybe Man... Doesn't really matter. I didn't...
It was on a Friday night.
Back in those days.
Friday night on CBS.
At the same time.
Friday night on CBS. That's all I remember. So I think it was against $6 Million Man because that was Friday night ABC.
Could very well be. Let's talk about the androids. So can androids have feelings? And do they dream of electric sheep?
Wow. Let's revisit Philip K. Dick. How many? I mean, that is a very popular meme. It was funny. In my notes, I actually wrote this, that if they wanted to do a story that was supposed to be about the power of human interaction and its effect on unfeeling androids, I would dare say that the Star Trek episode Requiem for Methuselah did a better job.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with the concept of somebody taking an android, data, whatever, and the job there is to create something that mimics a human. And there is a deep philosophical question that we could talk about as to whether or not, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck.
Is it a duck?
Or is it an android that's pretending to? Is it a replicant of some kind? And, fine. Is Cirrus really experiencing emotions? Why did the Swampies build him with tear ducts? What possible
use? Yeah, what use is that?
And if it's not tear ducts, why is it that his programming has decided, I think I'll squeeze some of the oil out of my brain unit?
Well, again, and this goes back to what we've discussed so many times, especially
sci-fi.
It is. We talked about this with to no end when we were discussing Man from Atlantis, and that is, these writers have really no grasp of proper science fiction. So they're grasping at straws, and I'm sure somebody thought, oh, wouldn't it be neat if...
Powerful. Yeah.
If we can have our anti... I don't know if Cirrus isn't an anti-hero. He really is a hero, because he's I mean, if anything, he's the idealist in all of this. All he cares about is Liana's feelings and how he doesn't want to see her hurt, he wants to see her happy, etc. So he's sort of the hero. Actually, he really is the hero. He's the one who completely wipes out Willoway's job, and everything that Willoway had built.
And just because Liana makes him feel good and warm and happy.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to go there.
No.
As if they built in biological functions for tear ducts, I wonder what else they built into him.
Yeah, we don't want to put an explicit tag on this podcast. So, yeah, you've got Cirrus, who is serving as your hero. And I'm sure some idiot writer thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if our hero, to really give him that sense of true humanity, what's the most human thing and most noble thing that we could imagine? And that is, we could have him shed a tear, which became rubbish, because not long after that, we see Willoway shed a tear for completely opposite reasons. So it's like, if you were trying to make a point, you kind of washed it away.
The android's tears are beautiful and pure, and Willoway's tears...
Humans' tears are evil.
And evil. Yes. Yes, that's a possibility. And then, so...
Because androids are naive and innocent.
I get the tear. I mean, I don't get how you could possibly...
I understand why it's there.
Yourself. I understand why it's there, but...
It's ridiculous, but I understand it.
Let me take a step back then. He reprograms him. How are we supposed to believe that Cirrus remembers his good and warm and happy, having had a memory dump, basically? It's
the power of human
soul here.
Yeah,
there's something beyond the bits and pieces and the mechanical components of these creatures, which for no reason that I can understand whatsoever, the Greenies said, our servants looked like us, Willoway took them and made them look like him, and then at the end they say something to the effect of, maybe we'll leave them like this as a reminder of you guys. Why was that in there? Why was that?
It serves no purpose at all. And of course, I mean, if we want to continue the whole subliminal derogatory line of reasoning that we get with the aliens, I mean, you take a look at all of these androids, and I don't know, you could slather pink or green makeup on them and give them a really bad wig and mustache, and I'm sorry, that's not going to look the slightest bit Mexican to me.
Well, actually, you probably would if you'd put that, because none of those people look like that either, but they still would be, I don't know, 2 foot taller practically.
Yeah, well, believe me, some of them
Willoway
look like...
not only made them look like him, but he also made them 2 foot taller.
He kind of... It's almost like he was making a master race.
That would be the kind of thing a deeply and sincerely evil man might do.
Yeah, it's possible.
But obviously not the architect of the future that Varian comes. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe Varian's future is very evil.
Maybe he really comes from a very dystopic society, and we're just meant to believe that it's lovely and beautiful. That means Varian is the threat.
Yeah. One thing I liked in this was it was much more obvious and clear that the Sonic takes a lot out of Varian.
Yeah, we really see it. Especially when he's using it as a weapon, like he was in this one.
Although apparently these androids are so rubbish that all you have to do is to hang on to their hand a little bit and the whole arm, the hand comes off.
Just come popping right off.
Your hand. I'm not too convinced that they're much of a problem if that's how you can defeat
They're pretty
them. Or you can zip down their zipper and pop their Ethernet card out of the bag.
I know, they're really flimsily made.
And was the chef a little bit...
oh, God, that was so ridiculously over the top. It was a very, very bad cliche. It was a horrible stereotype, and I will be honest, it did not engender the kind of rage that it gave in you, but believe me, I understand why you reacted the way you did. I do get it. But I remember watching it, just shaking my head thinking, this is terrible. Yeah. I mean, this is really terrible.
I'm not digging the show so far, I have to say.
Well, this was a real drop in quality, and I hate to say this, but I have every expectation, based on what little I remember, that it continues on this downward trajectory.
Well, will they be able to pull an episode out worse than the imp on the man from Atlantis? Still my nadir of television.
Gee, that's a tough sell. That is pretty bad, but I don't know.
Well, if Pat Morita shows up in one of these episodes,
yeah, now that I think about it, it is really awful.
Hey, Varian, do you want to play?
I don't know. Oh, God. Man from Atlantis cliches interfering with Fantastic Journey. It's giving me a headache.
I have got nothing else. I've got nothing else that I can think of. I mean, I'm very disappointed that they took Willoway along.
I'm sure they could have come up with a better way. If the whole intention was to bring Roddy McDowall into the series, I'm convinced that there could have been a much better way to do it than this. This was terrible.
By the way, what was he playing? I mean, let me try to rephrase that a little bit better. I've seen Roddy McDowall, and I have seen him act at times, and he can act. I can't figure out what emotions he was trying to show throughout most of this episode. He occasionally would get irritated, like when it was clearly Anna and Cirrus had a thing going there. He was briefly irritated. But so many of his lines that he delivered, I just really couldn't tell what he was trying to emote. Just sort of a happy, sort of smiley, but slightly wistful, beady-eyed.
There's something kind of flippant about his behavior, and that's something that Roddy is very good at doing. He does that in a lot of shows that I've seen him in. So watching him play that kind of role again did not necessarily surprise me, but it does makes him hard to read. Makes him very difficult to understand, and yeah. And then again, I have to kind of wonder, based on what I know is coming on down the pike, I have to wonder, was this meant to continue this idea that he's a rather duplicitous kind of fellow? Duplicitous. Yeah, little Spooners. Duplicitous kind of character.
Well, that's the building block of our future society.
Wow, how exciting.
I know. It makes you not look for the future, doesn't it?
It makes me want to watch Star Trek again.
But he's black on the right side. Oh, wait.
Not that one.
I plegum aligum. How about that one?
Not that one.
I think we burned this episode out.
Pretty much. I mean, this really was just I was unhappy. I mean, I'm not angry that I watched it, but I was unhappy that I watched it. I really felt like I could have done something much better with my time.
I was glad my kids left the room.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to expose that episode to them. I mean, you know, your kids are pretty bright, and especially James. He can be pretty bright in certain areas, and you wouldn't want him to see that kind of evil behavior coming out of Willoway.
Yeah, that casually dismissively evil.
It is.
You know, it's not like mustache twirling.
No, that's calculating evil.
Yeah,
this is not. This is dismissive.
Yeah. It's like that's not right. I don't know what the next episode of Fantastic Journey is.
I have no idea.
But I'm pretty sure next time you and I talk, we'll be looking at the next episode of Blake 7. So that's something to redeem us.
Oh, thank God.
For a time. So, Ben, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And listeners and commenters on our blog, we hope you'll join us all again next time on Fusion Patrol.
End of line.
Fusion Patrol is a Lone Locust production. Like us, leave us a review on iTunes. Or stop by and visit at our website, fusionpatrol.com. Find us on Facebook or Twitter. Search for Fusion Patrol. Or just drop us a note at feedback@fusionpatrol.com. Our music is Fight the Future by Amber Wolf.